Are you an investigative professional? Did you know you can find the best private investigator resources using investigatorstoolbox.com? This resource community was built exclusively for licensed investigators and investigative professionals. You can network directly with members, educate yourself through free webinars and blogs, and even create your own customizable research library. Membership starts for as little as 49 cents a day. Download the Investigator's Toolbox app or visit our webpage at www.investigators-toolbox.com.
You guys have been hearing for a long time about how much I love Crosstracks, but now you're going to hear from somebody else. So we got George Gerges here. George is a member and a user of Crosstracks. George, tell me real quickly what you love about Crosstracks.
The simplicity of using it and the ability to customize everything that you could do with Crosstracks is awesome. It actually allowed me to take the way that I do my business and implement it into their system. And not only am I able to manage 10 or 15 cases, I'm able to manage 50 to 100 cases with the same effort.
Fantastic. So Crosstracks, the case management system, they are SOC 2 certified. Basically, that's an encryption, really an upgrade. They're the only ones out there that are doing it. So please support this great sponsor that supports our show. Check them out. The links are in the show notes. Crosstracks, if you're an investigator, you should be using them today.
Welcome to PI Perspectives. Today we bring you the next installment for this year's OSMOSIS conference in St. Pete, Florida from October 16th to the 18th. This episode we welcome Chris Poulter, Marielle Klosterman, and Buddy Jericho. Chris is talking about the dark web, Marielle continues to talk to us about sock puppets in detail, and Buddy dives into the world of sex trafficking and OSINT. Please welcome our first guest, Chris Poulter, and your host, private investigator, Matt Spaier.
And welcome everybody to the next segment of PI Perspectives, the OSMOSIS edition, right? So we're moving into our next speaker here, and we went really, really far, all the way around the globe, actually, not even the country. we're in a whole nother country as we record this. Chris Poulter, I want to welcome you to the program. You're the OSINT Combine. Glad to have you, man.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. So before we started recording, I had mentioned to you that we actually met back at OSMOSIS, I think in 2019, the last time it was in Florida. And, I remember specifically having some great conversations with you. Tell me a little bit about the OSINT Combine and what that is.
Yeah. So OSINT Combine, we specialize in open source intelligence capability uplift. So we provide training, software, and services. So our training side is all about that fundamental tradecraft and getting in organizations and getting that baseline capability and then building them into an advanced capability with tool agnostic approach. And then we have a SaaS platform, Nexus Explore, which is our sort of flagship platform used globally. And that's where we look to create scale and efficiency within organizations with their own software. And then I have a services part of the organization, which really looks at providing that, whether it's due diligence work through to strategic reporting, and feeding that into different customer bases. So that's sort of like what we do and how we go about it. But we're a veteran-owned and operated business out of Australia. I come from a Australian military background and then transitioned into the OSINT space sort of later into my career. And then now we're all around the world and loving what we're doing.
Yeah. How many OSMOSIS have you actually been to? This
will be the third one, I believe. So I've been there every year since 2019. So 2021, yeah. So this will be the third one, and every year gets bigger and bigger, and love what Cynthia and the team do there. And we're super excited down in Tampa, which will be fun. And getting back to, last year was in person, and I believe this year will be even bigger, which is fantastic.
What made you decide to put in an application to become a speaker?
We're all about just trying to educate where we can and network and be with good people, and the crowd that Cynthia sort of attracts to the conference there is A grade, and fantastic opportunity to get some knowledge out there. So I'm really looking forward to talking about some dark web topics and just engaging with the people that are going to be attending.
So let's jump into that. Dark web is the topic, right? So what do you plan on bringing to that track?
So you're going to look at it from a little bit of a different perspective. So looking at in the deeper context around, everyone talks about attribution, but we're going to look at it from heavy into the technical side and what that means for people accessing it, so they have comfort in what is going on when they're connecting to those networks, and also investigation opportunities. And then we're going to go on a bit of a journey, look at things around what are some of the activity there, and what are some of the opportunities or techniques that investigators can apply to the dark web to start leveraging information slippage between the surface, deep, and dark web. And then look at probably some novel collection techniques, in an automation perspective, without having technical backgrounds, so people can start to create scale and efficiency in what they're doing. Everything, should be about, trying to build less time collecting, more time analyzing to feed into that process and creating efficiencies in people's workflow.
Right. So what would you say would be the number one mistake most investigators or analysts make when they're starting to look into the dark web? Because I know it's such a the dark web. It's like a big term, and it's very romantic to talk about it because of the Hollywood and whatever. But what
Right.
are the mistakes that people make?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Over dramatizing what the dark web is. It's just another corner of the internet that we need to be comfortable accessing. And so the first thing is just being aware of what your attribution is and the legalities of what you're looking at. So unfortunately, there's a lot of a large portion of the dark web is composing of child sex abuse material, which is unfortunate. So there's kind of the things that investigators need to be aware of when they're operating down there. What are the operating parameters and legal parameters that they're working in, given the fact that they may be exposed to certain bits of material along those lines. So from my perspective, it's less about what mistakes and more about how do we build resilience in things like, even from an OH&S perspective and a mental health perspective, about what you might be doing when you're accessing it, through to your technical protections and how do you get comfortable operating in that part of the internet, to actually support your investigations.
Right. Unfortunately, you can't unsee some things when you're
correct. Yeah. Vicarious trauma is real.
Right. I mean, and you bring up a good point here. And I talked about this earlier with Buddy Jericho. Actually, the same thing, right? So you're collecting this information. You're working on the side of good, but we have rules and we have parameters. We got to make sure that, however we're documenting this evidence, that's going to be usable. Because the worst thing you can do is catch somebody red-handed, but you can't use it because you didn't follow the proper procedure or protocol to get it into evidence. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, that one, you hit it right, and and Buddy's fantastic. The ethical approach to what we do and the frameworks that we might operate under, and then making sure you're catching that evidence. The hardest part about the dark web is things go up and down so often. If there is things on the dark web that are going to be relevant to your investigation, is how you're collecting that, documenting the technical aspect, because it may actually not be there when it comes time to having to demonstrate or validate that down the track. So that's going to be critical, and then obviously deconfliction with what the relevancy of your actual investigation is versus what other agencies might be doing work down on the dark web.
Right. So as somebody who works and lives in the world of OSINT, what is something that you would want to see in the next year, either a technique or technology or something that you're anticipating coming down the line that you say, wow, it's about darn time we started doing this?
Probably less so on the technical side. I mean, there's always great innovations coming out of everywhere, and everyone's looking at different ways to sort of tackle those problem sets. I like to think if we can start trending towards an ethical framework that we can all work towards and have that alignment in industry, so we know that who's doing OSINT for good versus the other side of that. So I think that's something that is in the works on a number of areas, both from a formal perspective and then just sort of informal frameworks that people are starting to consolidate and fuse in through their networks, and obviously collaborating with others who are working at the forefront of all this. So that's something I'm looking forward to, hopefully over the next 12 months.
Yeah, one of the speakers I was talking to, I think is Billy Rogers. I'm almost 100% was Billy. We were talking about having almost like a database, like a fingerprint database but an IP fingerprint. It's
Right.
like, okay, this is a bad one. Like these are the bad people. Stay away from these guys. And just having that, access to information for people, that are doing investigations, saying, okay, we've already identified these ones as being a problem, right? Something would be cool.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's also the validation that needs to go with that, because IPs can be shared, and they can be recycled, and so what we've got to be careful of is false positives and false negatives as well. So I think there's a heavy piece of validation that goes with that, but being able to reuse resources to create time savings and efficiency in what you're doing is always going to be important. So if there's resources like that, I think that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, and the theme here in all the speakers that I'm speaking to is that request or what they'd like to see is just on the ethics side. I think there's starting to be a real push on that. I know it's something that Cynthia is very passionate about on her end as well. Just trying to lay the groundwork for methodology and accountability for the industry. I think it's definitely heading in that direction.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and the accountability piece on what the so what of that, and particularly in the global environment, it definitely makes it challenging. Everyone's got different legal aspects, but I think from an ethical and moral perspective, there should be a level of alignment, regardless of what people are doing. And just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. Is always going to be at the forefront of people's minds, or should be at the forefront of people's minds, working in this space.
So, what are you looking forward to the most about the upcoming OSMOSIS?
Just getting back with everyone and catching up in person. I mean, it's a fun event. The speakers are great and the knowledge is always fantastic. But just being back there in person and it's all the sidebar conversations and hearing what everyone's up to and learning about some of the challenges people are having. That's what I'm all about. Is just getting back to in person and looking forward to a good event.
Definitely. Okay, so we're going to wind down here with this segment. Chris, I really appreciate you coming on. We were talking before we jumped on. It's literally like the next day for you, like midday. And I'm late night here in New York recording this. So it's like we're bending the sands of time here to make this thing work. I also want to thank my co-host, the Cricket, who's been with us the whole time we've been talking. So some of you may have picked it up. Some of you may have not. There's a little chirping going on in the background. I'm sure Joey, my producer, is going nuts over it. But hey, Chris, this was a three-way conversation today. So thank you so much for jumping on and talking about what you're going to talk about.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Looking forward to catching up in Tampa.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And stay tuned for the next segment.
I want to talk to everybody today about ScopeNow.com. ScopeNow has been a big-time sponsor of this program for quite some time, and I just love their service. I've been using them since the beginning. I'm one of their beta customers, and it's been so awesome to see them grow into the business that they are today, and just how they just keep reinventing themselves and pushing themselves to get more and more information. What it comes down to is ScopeNow is a tool that you definitely need to use if you do social media investigations, any internet research, and really spending less time digging around and looking for information. I think is one of the best points of how ScopeNow can help you. Their AI platform, their analytics are amazing. You really get an idea of what you need. You're reducing the time, you're reducing the manpower that you're spending on doing this research, because they're essentially doing it for you, and they're doing it correctly, which is most important. One of the new things that they're actually offering is this flagging system where you can flag behaviors and really highlight and look out for fraud. If you're doing a lot of fraud research, this is a fantastic tool, and you can set up alerts. So you have particular people that you're looking at, you can actually set up alerts to get notifications when the criteria that you set up is actually is flagged and goes off. It's really, really amazing. And their relationship and association analytics are top notch, really cutting edge and really, really cool. When they brought that out on version 3, it was a game changer. I mean, really being able to see how people interact together and having that relationship, analysis is really, really something that's cool. One of the other things about being involved with ScopeNow is their ability to offer webinars. Their team is cutting edge on putting together and getting out really, really great content. If you're a member of Scope Now, if you know who they are, you've seen them around on LinkedIn, you'll know that they're constantly doing webinars on these new websites that are coming out, and they're really staying on top of it. And don't forget, any reports that you generate, you can actually white label those reports and put your own logos on and really make them look professional, which could equate to more billing for you as well. So check them out today. It's www.scopenow.com. They're a great company. They should be one of the tools in your toolbox, along with whatever kind of search engines you do. You need to make sure that Scope Now is a part of that suite. Scopenow.com.
Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Our next guest is Marielle Klosterman. Marielle was awarded the Rising Star distinction last year at OSMOSIS 2021 in San Diego. We're talking cardinal control and the sock puppet. Please welcome Marielle Klosterman to our next segment.
And welcome everyone to the next segment of PI Perspectives, the Osmosis edition. We are welcoming back somebody that we were talking to last year after Osmosis, somebody who I was hanging out with. I think we had barbecue and chilling. I want to welcome Marielle Klosterman back to the program. Marielle, how are you?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so last time we saw each other, we were in San Diego, and I think we were having like barbecue with a whole bunch of people.
It was good. Yeah.
What have you been doing since then?
Since then, I've been, finishing up my bachelor's degree and working on pursuing my master's here, and just little fun projects here and there. Just working on my skills and building my technical skills there. So.
Are you still beaming in the glory of the award that you won?
Yeah, it is. It's still, it's still an achievement for me. I still feel that pride that comes with that. So yeah, I'm really happy about it. But I'm, working on building, things that I can do in the future, and
the next one. So
achieving other things. Yeah.
One of the things you're going to be in the future, in the near future, is you're going to be teaching on osmosis, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
You now have the opportunity to have a seat in front of everybody and talk a little further about what you did. I mean, last year it was kind of bits and bites. Let's jump in 5 minutes of, hey, this is how we do this. But now you actually have a full session. So congrats to you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor for sure.
So what are you going to be talking about? What's the plan here?
Yeah. So last year I was talking about sock puppets, and it was just the big general overview. But now I'm going to be jumping in a little more on the more detailed side of how to set up the accounts and how to, try as much as you can to make sure that your accounts are not deleted, or, they don't fall under suspicion, and, just how to operate with accounts when you're doing research, when you're trying to, find information.
Okay. So not everybody knows what a sock puppet is. So why don't we break it down for those who are still trying to figure out what lamb chop has to do with all this.
Yeah. So sock puppet accounts is a term for an alternative social media account on any social media platform. Sometimes it's not specifically social media, but it's basically an alternative account that an investigator or someone who's looking for information in, open source or publicly available information uses for operational security, right? So, if you're looking into someone bad, you don't want them to know, hey, someone's looking into you. And, there could be various repercussions if you are using your own account. So.
Right. So what do you think, give me the 3 top mistakes people make when creating sock puppet accounts?
Using a very generated looking photo. So there's the, what is it called? That there's multiple sites that you can go in and generate a person's photo, right? That doesn't exist. This person does not exist is one of the biggest ones, one of the most well-known. But there's a thing with when they're generated that, if you analyze it, you can tell, usually depending on how the eyes look, or, sometimes there's one ear that's full and the other ear is like a little like sliver, even though they're looking straight forward, or,
right.
You should be able to see more of the ear than, it's kind of,
So
like,
the
it's
guy
kind of
walking
off.
around with a slivered ear in real life, he's like, I'm a real person, darn it.
I'm out here. Yeah. But
Flesh
yeah,
and
that's
blood.
most of the time. That's a big one, how they get caught. And then a second one is following, or, just interacting with a person in a way that is just very obvious. You're trying to get something, or you're trying to find out something. So you get a lot of those on LinkedIn, where someone reaches out and just is very generic, like, yes, I'm looking to connect with you because I saw your profile, or something like that, where, they don't, have an interest in you. They don't know you, things like that.
They want to tell you the secrets of Bitcoin mining and how you're going to become a millionaire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They really want to help you in your business.
All you got to do is ask them to turn sideways, and then they
exactly.
Right?
That's one of the things they say with the deep fake videos, actually, is that if you get them to turn their head sideways, then it will disintegrate, and you can easily tell. But
right. Well, all bets are off.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, some people also like, okay, so why don't you take a picture with you holding a cup of coffee, right? And
exactly.
These bad actors have a whole stockpile of images of like coffee, Coca-Cola, whatever.
They know what you're gonna go for, yeah.
You name it, they got it, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. And they're really, really determined to get your information.
Oh yeah, for sure. They have the time, they have resources, and they'll figure something out. Yeah.
Right. So what are you hoping that folks that are attending your class are going to walk away with?
I hope they're going to walk away with more in-depth knowledge of how to keep their accounts alive. And, like I said earlier, I said two things that most people get caught on, but another one is VPN use, right? Before you've established your account, there's this thing called aging that not a lot of people know about, or know that they should do when they're creating the accounts. So, for example, I was judging for the Trace Labs Capture the Flag for DEF CON just recently.
You were
That's awesome. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things I saw a lot of people talking about was, hey, I tried to get into my account just now and it's not working for some reason. And some of them got burned. Their accounts got, shut down, or the platform was asking for, hey, we need your ID, or we need a picture of you doing this or whatever, right, to verify them, because something was off. So one of the things that people don't know is that in order to keep your account alive for, a long period of time, you have to age it. You can't just jump into it once you've created to use it. You want to create it and then age it a little bit, so that when you do start using it for your investigations, for other things, it's not going to be seeming suspicious, because you've already interacted with it. You already used it like a normal person would.
Yeah. No, you definitely, you gotta tenderize it, right?
Exactly. It's like a nice little slow cook there. Yeah.
Break it down. It's awesome. Yeah. I mean, it's so important, right? If you're trying to develop that social engineering aspect, right? You're trying to create a comfort level or get in there and get information, there has to be credibility, right? You go back to somebody like Donnie Brasco, right? That real life, right?
Yeah.
This guy infiltrating, getting in with gangsters and mobsters and all that. And it wasn't something overnight, right? He had
right. It wasn't you just like show up on the door like, hey, how's it going?
Right. It's a fugazi, right?
So, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, and this is just taking it one step further, which is crazy, right? I was having a conversation with some friends last night, and we were chatting about like the metaverse and where everything is going, and how like literally our lives are going to be avatars, and we're going to be in this world, but not really in this world, right?
Yeah.
The Matrix, but not the Matrix, that
exactly. Everyone's been, this has been, something that people have been kind of conceptualizing for a long time. So it'll be interesting once we get there, because obviously there's what people want, right? The ideal, and then there's how it actually works.
Right.
And so that'll be interesting to see what people envisioned and then what the reality is actually going to be like.
Okay, so if you could see one thing happen in the next year in your space, in your vertical, the stuff that you do, what would you like to see happen in the next year or so?
I'd probably like to see a lot more integration for some of the tools that are out there, because, there's a lot of different, small, like one-off tools that, okay, it's useful for this specific thing. But it would be a lot more useful if you could, especially with open source, right? There's a lot of tools that are open source themselves and can help you find open source information. And I think, kind of just trying to merge some of those tools would be huge.
Yeah, like having a one-stop shop where you can have all those.
Exactly. Instead of running, okay, I'm gonna run this tool, and then
I don't know any place that exists like that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, just kind of see a lot more open source collaborations, just between different professionals and companies in the industry. I think that would be amazing.
I love the fact that like Trace Labs and some of these other places, I was even talking with Buddy Jericho recently about the Skull Games and all that, how there's these exercises and these challenges to these analysts out there, almost, like the capture the flag or whatever like that, these training exercises, it's so cool that we're all doing that, right? We're working with each other, trying to help each other out and get better at what we're doing, but we're also like trying to one up.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So, that's what makes it so fun. You're doing a good thing, but it's also, kind of a fun thing too. So a
little bit of bragging rights that
exactly.
Right. So that's cool. I mean, it's really cool. So you're teaching obviously at Osmosis. You were there the year before. How many Osmosis conferences have you actually attended?
Last year was my first one. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, now you're hooked, right?
Exactly. Now I'm like, I have to go back next year. So
that's great. I'm looking forward to seeing you. And this topic is always fascinating to me. The whole idea of creating this whole life or backstory of something that just to achieve a goal, I think is really, really neat. So for those of you who have not signed up yet, there's more than enough time to sign up. Those of you who have signed up and you'll be attending there, make sure you take advantage of the online community that's actually set up already, where you're able to go back and forth. Mariel's in there. You can send her direct messages, create a puppet, whatever, pretend to be somebody that you're not. I think was it Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? That name's probably taken. So
probably, but you could always make like a Neil deGrasse Tyson's dog or something, something that's like a little parody account. There you go.
Exactly. Was it Michio Kichu or Kaku, whatever that guy's name is? Keep your eyes on that one too.
Exactly.
So Mary, this is great. Thank you so much for coming on and just sharing a little bit of what you're going to be talking about.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Matt.
Yeah, you're welcome. So Osmosis, Google it. It's going on in October. I think it's the 16th to the 18th. Go check it out, and come see me, come see Mariel, come see everybody else that's going to be there.
Are you a member of NCISS? Do you know what this great organization does? The National Council of Investigation and Security Services was formed in 1975 to keep a watchful eye on legislation that affects our industry. Now more than ever, there are data privacy and DMV issues popping up all over the country. Consider joining and supporting this much-needed watchdog for our industry. Learn more at nciss.org. The summer's here, and that means it's time to bundle discounts with the Investigator Education Consultants. Bundles are available on the fundamentals of the profession, gumshoe talent, putting it all together, hard-time crime, and pocketbook crime. If you purchase any of these combinations, you'll receive a 10% discount by using the code BUNDLE, BUNDLE. Visit the website at investigationeducation.com. That's investigationeducation.com. PIMagazine.com. Check out the latest issue of PI Magazine, available online or via hard copy. Visit PIMagazine.com to learn more. And with that, it's time to jump into our last segment of this episode. We first heard from Buddy Jericho last year, and he's back to discuss the Skull Games. Please welcome Buddy Jericho and your host, private investigator Matt Spaier.
And welcome everybody to the next segment of PI Perspectives, the OSMOSIS version. Today, or the next segment here, I'm really psyched and happy to reintroduce my friend Buddy Jericho. We met last year at the OSMOSIS in San Diego, and man, such a cool guy. You do such cool things, and you talk about cool things too. So Buddy, I want to welcome you back to the program. How are you?
Good, Matt, and thank you for having me back on. And man, we are super, I spoke last year at OSMOSIS. That was an awesome time. And I'm speaking again this year. So I'm super excited, especially because of what I'll be talking about during this next conference. And like we talked about earlier before we jumped on the air here, it's taking place in our hometown.
Right.
And not only is it in our hometown, it's literally right next door to our office here in Tampa. So
Right.
it's a lot of exciting things, I think, happening for this year's OSMOSIS Con.
So like free tours of Echo, right?
Free tours, free coffee. That's right. We'll probably even have pizza here a few of those days. So absolutely.
All right, slow your roll there, buddy. We got to keep people in the classrooms, not going out. So let's talk a little bit about your background for folks who don't know you. Tell me just, briefly how you got to where you are right now.
Sure. I spent 10 years in the military, grew up in Philadelphia, went to college for a little bit of time, but I just had this passion to go travel overseas, and the military at the time was the best way to do that. So I joined the Army, spent about 10 years in the Army, and then at the 10-year mark, it was the height of the war in Iraq. I was in Fallujah, actually, and I was offered the opportunity to work for one of the larger intelligence agencies, and so I took it. And then I got into a thing known as human intelligence, where I was basically responsible for managing sources across the globe in the fight against terrorism. So I did that for about 11 years. In 2012, when I left or resigned from the government, at that time, a lot of folks were joining extremist organizations online. And so I started looking at the internet and how the bad guys were sort of using the internet to recruit people. And that just, it was very exciting for me to sort of learn this whole new discipline. But a lot of the things I had already known from doing this on the ground applied in the internet as well. And so, so that's how I got into OSINT, and we built a company around that, and we continue to do that to this day.
Right. And name your company is?
Echo Analytics Group.
There we go. Right. Based in Tampa, apparently across the street. So from where we're going to be. That's amazing. I know the last time we were talking last year, we had a little bit of a hiccup getting online together because you were a little busy. There were people that needed to be extricated. I think it was Afghanistan, right? We were working on doing that, right?
That's right. Yeah, we were involved in the Afghan relief effort, and so it was just a super busy time. But we continue to be involved as much as we can. But it's everybody's watching the news, so everybody kind of understands the issues around helping those folks get out of Afghanistan.
Sure. Fires are popping up all over the place, and you got to tamp things out as they come up. So, so let's talk about your topic a little bit. What are you teaching on, and what do you hope folks to get out of your teaching track?
So it's pretty exciting. I'm actually going to be talking about counter-sex trafficking, especially because OSMOSIS is going to take place here in Florida, and Florida is the third is the third largest state in the nation for sex trafficking cases.
Okay.
So I'll be talking about counter-sex trafficking, some of the efforts, the difference between anti-trafficking and counter-trafficking. Mm-hmm. We've been running Skull Games here in Tampa. We're actually going to be running our Skull Games next exercise 2 days before OSMOSIS.
Okay.
So that'll be pretty exciting. We're hoping to get some more volunteers this time. But so far, we've helped identify over the first 4 Skull Games 40 women we've been able to identify, and then identify 20 persons of interest. So during the conversation at OSMOSIS, I'll talk a little bit about how we execute skull games, the rules of skull games, how our analysts that join us to participate actually go about finding these girls and these criminals. And then I've got a big surprise at the end. I won't share all the details, but we do have a program we call the Victim to Victor. And so I will have a special guest joining me at the end of my discussion to kind of tell their story of going from being trafficked to now being an OSINT hunter, helping those girls who were once in her position.
That's amazing. For a second, I thought the surprise was going to be pizza. But
And
apparently this is more important. That's great, man. Yeah, I love what you do, man. And it's so awesome to be able to help people like that. And what I love about you, and I've met you personally, man, it's just the servant's heart, right? You have a certain skill set and you want to use your talents for the greater good, right? You're definitely one of those white knight type of guys, right? It's almost like an obsession, right?
Well, I appreciate that. And that's one of the things I like about the OSINT community, Matt, is I know that everybody's kind of running businesses and we approach OSINT from different perspectives and skill sets. But one of the things I love about OSMOSIS is I feel that way about a lot of people involved in our community. Right. It's just been overwhelming that for me, at least, to see all the people joining skull games. And a lot of them come from our community. A lot of them attend OSMOSIS. And what we've kind of figured out is for every volunteer that we have involved in skull games, we find about one girl. The percentage is just above that. But so the more people we get involved, the better we do. But I feel like our community, most people are like that. They've gotten into this discipline and this space because they do want to help people, whether it's through investigations, supporting the government, or doing things like skull games.
Right. No, that's great. So for folks who don't know what the skull games are, what exactly are the skull games and how does it work?
Yeah, great question. So we started this a few years back, and a government agency, a federal law enforcement agency, reached out to us one year and they said they had about 60 girls that were missing in Kansas City and they needed some help with locating them. And we had just trained a lot of their folks on how to basically use OSINT for that particular mission set. And so we only had 6 people in the company at the time. And so we couldn't do a whole bunch to help, but we wanted to. And so I reached out to all the folks that had attended our courses, all of our students, and we asked them, instead of giving money to charity this year, could you please give us like 3 hours of your time and leverage the skills that we taught you and help us find these kids? And so we had a pretty good amount of people join. We were actually able to locate several girls. And then 6 months later, we decided this is something we should be doing, not just when law enforcement reaches out to us, but we kind of have a civic duty to assist here, especially with these skills that we've acquired through the OSINT discipline. Yeah. And so we launched Skull Games to continue that effort. And we've done 4 so far. And essentially the way it works is we work very closely with law enforcement across the country. And they tell us exactly what the protocol is for reporting these cases, because the last thing we want to do is spend a whole bunch of time doing this work and then it sits on a shelf somewhere. So we're very particular about how we collect the data, how we manage that chain of custody, and how we hand it off.
Sure.
We also actually have law enforcement professionals that come here in our ops center at Echo Analytics Group and sit in and help guide our analysts and help them, build those reports in a way that law enforcement can easily take those and then execute what they need to execute as a result. And so it's closely coordinated with law enforcement. We've actually worked with some federal law enforcement agencies too in this effort, and that's starting to grow. But the cool thing about Skull Games is it's not just that people are hunting for missing girls online and kids. We actually have a point system, so we've gamified it a little bit. So there's a little bit of competition involved in this as well.
You got to, man. That's the way we're all built, man. We're children of the 80s. we live with Donkey Kong and Space Invaders and all that. It's just the way our brain works, right? We have to be super competitive. So
and to that piece, Matt, when we send those packets out, that's why it's important for us to have law enforcement partners here, because then the analysts get results nearly immediately about the cases they work. So that feedback and that gamification, like you said, it makes it a very exciting exercise for us.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's great. I'm noticing that trend. Like a lot of conferences are trying to implement some sort of gaming strategy in the conference itself. It's just, we're all built that way, right? everybody wants to brag about how good they are, what they do. So if you could see something happen in the next year or two in OSINT, what would be that one ask, that one thing like, man, if we could just do that, that would be amazing.
I would like to see us come together as a community and establish some standards around training. It's such a new space that I feel like there's so many courses popping up, and I'd like to see the community come together more collaboratively, establish a governing body that manages the standards for what is accredited OSINT training and what is not. Sort of like accounting. Accountants have done with CPE credits, and law firms have done with, or paralegals have done with the CLE credit. I think OSINT needs that governing body that helps establish what real training in OSINT is, and so I'd love to see that happen.
Yeah, man, that's a great idea. I mean, it's kind of happening. Those of us who are in the know are in the know, and there's a push for it. So your wish may be granted, sir. But it's great. I mean, we need that. We need that accountability, and there's so many people that get into this industry, whether it's coming from law enforcement or just coming out of school, and there is that, now what, right? How do I get started? What's appropriate? What's not appropriate? There is a Wild West to it, right? Because there's nobody really over your shoulder saying, hey, don't do that, don't do this. And you want to make sure you're not submarining your investigation by doing something unethical, because there are some gray areas in what we do. So I love that idea. It's awesome. Really, really good stuff. So,
sorry.
No, go
I was
ahead.
just saying, and I think the other part is, when we talk to our clients, the consumers are just so confused over what OSINT is, and we have so many different definitions, and so coming up with a single definition of what it is and what it is not, I think is huge, and the discipline is growing. I was talking to somebody the other day. If you do a search on Indeed for OSINT, for somebody hiring an OSINTer, that's well over there's 800 job vacancies as of a few weeks, just on Indeed for OSINT professionals. So that the need for this skill set is there.
Absolutely. And the other thing to take into consideration is the ability for us to do our research, right? The data research and whatever. It's governed by legislation, right? So if you get a body that is now accredited or whatever, it kind of adds a little weight to it. So when you're going to Washington and you're talking to these senators and these congressmen and women and all that, and you're trying to educate them on why we need to continue to do what we do, the rescuing of people in sex traffic and things of that. Like, a lot of them don't know. They look in what's on TV, or they hear a news story about how some crazy looked up a judge and showed up at her house and shot her and her husband and kid. It's like, that's the bad stuff, right? They don't understand the good stuff. And by having that sort of accreditation or accountability and all that, it kind of leads weight into the industry, right?
I totally agree. Absolutely. Yeah. It gives us a common voice. And I think one of the things you hit on there that's really important is people, I think, are just waking up to the idea that OSINT is applicable in so many different areas. It's not just law enforcement and military. We have recruiters attending our courses. We have accountants attending our courses. We have
real estate.
Exactly.
Real estate's a huge industry for OSINT, and go figure, but it really is. Yeah. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of verticals that are popping up now, which is interesting. And they're going to want to regulate it. So wow, how did we get to this? We're completely off track, but we're going to wind down here, actually. Buddy, thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited to see your presentation. You knocked it out of the park in San Diego, and it's you got big shoes to fill for yourself presentations. So
you're too kind, Matt, but I'm excited.
Yeah. So folks, you can go, if you've signed up for OSINT or OSMOSIS already, you can actually go to the online community if you needed to reach out to Buddy, had any questions or comments or anything on that. So you got to get registered to be a part of that. And we look forward to seeing you guys. And Buddy, thank you so much for your time again. And I'll see you in a couple months.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. I can't wait to see you.
You got it.
Welcome to Florida. Thank you.
You got it.
We're well underway and counting down to Osmosis 2022, so make sure you check all the details for Osmosis at osmosiscon.com. Thanks to Crosstrack, Scope Now, Conflict International, PI Institute of Education, and NCISS for sponsoring the show. Please support our great supporters. Have you thought about joining Investigator's Toolbox? Now's the time to get on board and join the fastest growing digital community for investigative professionals. Use code PIP 201836 to save 10% on membership when you join. If you have a question or a comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We want your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. And we'll be back next week with a new show, so make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.